Bloons Card Storm has a variety of cards to choose from, ranging from monkeys to powers. With such a strategy game that revolves around balancing your deck with balloons, monkeys, and powers to increase your chances of winning, what if we rank all 64 monkey cards from worst to best? We'll set up our list as I got good understanding of the current meta game, and how each of the monkey cards play a role in adapting to such game. Some questionably revolting options, you do ask me. Viewers, prepare yourself as we will dive into this vivacious tier list right now. So we are starting this off with the F tier monkeys. These are amongst the worst options inside of the game, and should never be used, since they don't really make an impact across the playing field. First being the Sun Temple, the worst monkey I would consider in my list. Sun Temple is one of the strongest monkeys in the game, but also the most expensive in the current meta. With so many maneuvers around the Sun Temple, it's simply just too easy to counter with the likes of return to sender and other tower control options, and will make you very vulnerable once that's removed. It's too risky and only really good as a noob stopper. Next in the F tier I went with a crossbow monkey. Crossbow is very bad right now, and is outclassed by every 4-cost option in the game like Bernie Stuff and Mine Supervisor, and it doesn't even counter aggro as an early game monkey, so it's completely unusable. Next up is the Druid, another 4-cost monkey that's very much outclassed by other early options and defenders in general. Its healing isn't really that good, and you're better off using another defender like Tack Shooter that can offer more efficient damage for the price you're paying, and healing cards like Quick Break or Jungle's Bounty Druid. It's very bad. Lastly on the F tier we have the Banana Plantation. The main problem with Banana Plantation is the fact you have to profit from the opponent's card draw, whereas in the short run it doesn't really do that much fundamentally against aggro or other decks that run very minimal card draw. So it's completely outclassed by other money generation tools, and is the worst out of the bunch. Now we are moving on our D tier monkeys. These are better than the F tier monkeys, but are generally considered weak in terms of sheer power, and aren't usually worth including in your deck. Starting with the Wall of Fire Wizard, coming at number 60. This could easily belong in the F tier, but the main reason as to why the Wall of Fire Wizard is so atrocious is mainly due to how lackluster its on-play effect is. Only one fireball and that's about it. It feels so incredibly clunky, and the defender aspect isn't even worthwhile using, as it cannot deal with strong combo techniques such as a heavily fortified double yellow bloom that was already quick readied in your face. So for that reason it's very much outclassed and needs a buff. Boomerang Monkey is next, and it's another early game monkey that doesn't really do that much in comparison to all the other top early game options like Triple Shot and Art Monkey Twins. Of course doesn't deal enough damage to keep up with the meta, so it's pretty bad given the current state. Dart Monkey can be good to fulfill the early game role, since it's the only monkey card to cost nothing to place, but now it's just been power crept by its counterparts like Dart Monkey Twins and Barrel of Monkeys that were introduced not too long ago, so it has really fallen off and cannot really keep up in terms of damage in the early portion. Next up is the Sharpened Dart Slab, the first factory to ever be ranked, and oh boy, how useless it is. The main problem with Sharpened Dart Slab fundamentally is the give ammo mechanic being so incredibly inconsistent, and having your newly placed primary monkey's attack a random balloon for you isn't really that consistent, and even then you might end up drawing this tower so late that it becomes unusable in the later portion, even with 3 copies, so it's not good for that reason. Corvus Academy of Arts is ranked so low, mainly because it's just too easy to counter, just like Sun Temple, but it does have its moments where, if the opponent lacks any tower removal, it can essentially act as a hero protection on steroids if you're getting ran down by heavy blimp spam. Until they nerf R2S, it remains virtually unusable in the current meta. Sharpshooter isn't really a good ultra rare monkey currently, mainly because it does far too little in comparison to other ultra rare monkeys, and Arcane Master costing the same but better in many occasions kind of makes it worthless, since the latter isn't a unique but better stat wise. So even in dart related decks, Sharpshooter doesn't even pack enough punch against tempo pushes. Necromancer is woefully bad, literally. It's supposed to be an aggro/tempo support card that consistently applies pressure with its undead bloons. But as of now the undead bloons are far too squishy, and it doesn't offer enough value to sustain a healthy push, and it's got worse with the summon rework, which makes newly spawned undead bloons 2 delay instead of 1. So it's absolutely terrible, and can be replaced with better bloon support cards like Ceramic Glazing Kiln. And lastly on the D tier I went with the Sniper Monkey. It has got a bit better, mainly because of the overpowered Blooming Bloon. As long the opponent isn't Amelia or ZJ, you can one-shot the Blooming Bloon consistently, unless played on Dark Castle. It's still pretty bad, and is often replaceable with strong early towers later in the game for the casual player base. Now we are moving on to your C tier monkeys. These are kind of mediocre, but also below average in the current environment of Card Storm. There are a lot of mid options currently, which lets us commence with the Acidic Mix Alchemist first of all. So Acidic Mix Alch isn't really that good from my experience. It could easily belong in the D tier, but the reason as to why it's at the very bottom of the C tier is because of its ability, which pairs really well with fast reloading monkeys like Triple Shot and Monkey Investigator, as well as monkeys with a relatively moderate reload, and multiple pieces of ammo like Tack Shooter and Glaive Ricochet. It currently lacks the damage to keep up with the hyper-aggressive meta, and is usually better off running another monkey that can excel in anti-aggro, so it's pretty bad. Crippling Sniper could easily belong in the D tier as well, but it's only really usable in striker decks and those that run 3 copies of Try This to buff its ammo to make it a better anti-beatdown card, else it doesn't really do that much against tempo/beatdown decks, and Moab Mauler, despite being a rare instead of an ultra rare, has far better capabilities against those types of decks, and Crippling Sniper is just awkward to use in the current meta, and Moab Mauler has power crept it so insane. Next up we have the Berserker Brew, and it very much reminds me of a power card in a sense, where it doesn't really offer much as a standalone tower, but it can be underrated in some instances, such as giving the Triple Shot the extra ammo/damage boost that allows it to fully shut down an entire push, especially with ZJ's radical enhancements to make it go overdrive, else it's not needed, and there's just better options out there that are more consistent and reliable. Bionic Boomerang has really fallen from grace. It used to be pretty broken back in the open beta, as well as a solid option in Gwendolyn and ZJ decks, but ever since the introduction of Frag Bomb Shooter in update 4.0, it feels kind of bad compared to Frag Bomb, which has splash damage and pairs super well with damage boosts like ZJ's radical enhancements, but now it doesn't provide the same impact as it used to, and it doesn't really do that much damage once the on-play effect is used up, so very mid. Elite Defender received a stat rework not too long ago which now has 4 pieces of ammo, but less damage to compensate, and if anything it got worse, because of the new power card that straight up removes defenders for 3 gold, and it cannot break through bloons with even just a small amount of armor. So there's just better defenders out there like Tack Sprayer that can offer more value for a relatively low cost. Moab Eliminator is next, and it very much reminds me of Crippling Sniper, and it's a pretty difficult card to rank on this list. But why does this thing cost 16 gold? That's because it can insta-kill Moab class bloons such as BFBs and Oh My Gods, making it very usable against beatdown decks. Outside of those matchups it's easily an F tier tower, as the stats are very much redundant against aggro or mid-range decks that normally don't run too many large bloons to make an impact, so C tier is where it's at. Cash Drop Sniper can be useful to deliver the player some additional cash, but as of now it doesn't deal enough damage to keep up with the hyper aggressive meta, so it's fair to say that C tier is where it belongs. Arcane Master has really fallen off the same exact fate as Bionic Boomer. The main reason is to be because of Frag Bomb, right? You got this tower that costs 6 gold, has splash damage, 3 pieces of ammo, 30 damage and 3 reload that does its job a lot better, especially for anti-aggro, whereas Arcane Master doesn't really have splash damage, but costs 9 gold, has 2 pieces of ammo, 3 reload and 50 damage, and has spread damage, meaning the additional bolts it magically casts out will target the 2 other random enemy bloons, as well as directly hitting the targeted bloon with the main bolt, and the yellow bloon bonus doesn't really matter anyways, because Frag Bomb just does its thing infinitely better, so it's been power crept by Frag Bomb and it's one of the most impactful fall-offs we ever had for a long while. Spike Pult is especially useful against small bloons, since it can level up consistently from popping the reds, the blues, etc. But in the current environment, where meta bloons like blooming and yellow are viable in every aggro / mid-range deck, Spike Pult really struggles to gain levels against hyper aggro, but it can be very strong with Try This to start reaping in damage a lot quicker. There's R2S that can descale its attack power as well as the bonus ammo from Try This, so it's not really that usable in my opinion. Bloontonium Saboteur is the definition of mediocre. Its ability to remove the opponent's Bloontonium sounds very cool in concept, but it doesn't really remove enough Bloontonium from the opponent, especially against Adoras that run a Bloontonium heavy deck, so it definitely needs a rework in the future. Mortar Monkey can be an okay early game option, especially for newer players, however it's outclassed by the likes of Dart Monkey Twins and Barrel of Monkeys that can do its job much more consistently, so it's in the middle of the pack. Thunder Druid in my opinion is kinda mid, to be completely honest. When you think of the standalone tower, Thunder Druid is absolutely terrible, but its on play effect definitely carries it, and it has been heavily nerfed not too long ago, which doesn't have the power necessary to take on strong pushes anymore. It's only really usable in a handful of decks, primarily Adora, so it's not the greatest currently, and would be a likely candidate of rework. Lead Coating Factory is only really usable in armor focused decks that want to work on a highly scaled armor powered bloon, or in some niche situations where it can help counter the likes of Barrel of Monkeys in aggro decks, else it's just not needed, and aggro is already good without these support cards. Same goes with the Ceramic Glazing Kiln, as I would consider this to be better than the Lead Coating Factory. And it could easily belong in the low B tier thanks to the synergies it provides for combo decks, especially if it combines aggro in one. It can change a lot of interactions as well as making pink bloons stronger as the finisher, so pretty underrated in my opinion. Lead to Gold Alchemist is another money making tower that really struggles in terms of EPS, but it can work as a counter to lead coating bloons mainly to profit from them, else it's just below average. Heart of Vengeance Druid received a rework to its stats in the most recent update, making it more of an early game focused monkey. However, I don't think the rework has really made it like crazy, but it's still an okay option across the board. The main problem is it takes too long to scale, especially against strong aggression, and it's completely useless against tempo, because you'll never gain levels on your druid thanks to the heavy blimp spam they offer, so it's below average. And lastly, on the C tier I went with the Bouncing Bullet. It could belong in the low B tier, but I just think it gets outclassed by similar cost options like Super Monkey and Bloon Master Alchemist, so it's only really good in striker decks or a few other niche decks with Extractor Bloon and Try This to farm the former some extra HP from ricocheting shots, so it's alright across the board. Now moving on to your B tier monkeys. These are generally balanced yet decent options if you really want something that can fulfill the role of defending. However, they're not just as superior to the A and S tier options. Starting this off with the Bomb Shooter. This could likely belong in the high C tier. However, it's a really good counter to lead coating balloons, and the blooming balloon is a reactionary, and it's up this tier thanks to the bomb balloon. The bomb balloon can potentially give you up to 2 bomb shooters per copy, which is insane value, and you don't necessarily need to run bomb shooters in your deck when you can go bomb balloons for pressure and defense. So pretty good in my opinion. Bloontonium Miner is a fantastic option in Adora and Mountain of Index, thanks to their dependence on Bloontonium to give them plenty of space to sustain against. You often see him being paired with Mine Supervisor to farm a lot of Bloontonium for those types of heroes. Without Mine Supervisor, it would definitely be in the near bottom of the tier list. Glaive Ricochet has fallen down ever since the introduction of armor in 4.0, but it's still a solid option if you really need that strong late game monkey in a control deck. For that reason, it'll always be in the B tier at least. Missile Launcher is a solid anti-armor tower that can attack doubly, bringing some solid single target DPS as well as synergy with Tridus and damage buffers, so it's good for that reason, though it can still get ran down by some of the best aggro decks in the game, so B tier is where it's at. Leeching Shot Sniper provides decent utility as well as reasonable single target damage for such a low cost. Definitely a better version of the Sniper Monkey, and you do see this being used a lot in decks that rely heavily on Bloontonium like Gwendolyn, Adora and Mountain Abin. So for that reason, it'll always be at least in this tier. Monkey Village is very underrated in my opinion, mainly because it pairs so exceptionally well with 2 of the best monkeys in the game, Triple Shot and Frag Bomb Shooter, allowing the splash archetype to be rendered possible. However, Village isn't the greatest if you never manage to draw a single splash monkey early in the game, as it's only really used on decks that rely on heavily buffing specific monkeys, so it's fair to say that B tier is where it belongs. The big one can deal a lot of damage gradually, however it's just too inconsistent a lot of the time, and also expensive to set down in a lot of different matchups. It's not terrible by any means, but it's decent in the right deck, so it's alright in my opinion. Same goes with the Total Transformation Monkey, another ultra rare monkey that's only really good in the right matchup, and it's one of those ultra rares that has to be drawn early in order to make such a big impact as an anti-aggro option. So for that concern, you might not be able to get Total Transformation early on, as all cards with the unique key would have the ultra rare factor, which is drawn 50% less frequently compared to a rare card, or 100% with common cards. So very unreliable and oftentimes irrelevant. Super Monkey Fan Club is an excellent option if you're using just Dart Monkeys in your deck. However, the only drawback that keeps the Fan Club Monkey from any higher is the main attack damage, else it should be alright at making Triple Shot Monkeys or Barrel of Monkeys incredibly powerful as long as it doesn't get removed by the likes of Bedtime or Shrink. Tack Shooter is a very good early game option, as you can never really go wrong with 2 or 3 tack shooters in your deck if you really need that defender that is cheap, efficient and reliable for the early game. So it's very balanced in my opinion, and isn't anything too dumb or insane. Alchemist Monkey was busted upon release, but now he received a reload nerf which finally puts him in his balanced state. His acid pools are very good as a pseudo defender in case pink balloons become a lethal threat, as it can force the aggro player to structure their rushes differently because of the acid pools. So pretty solid despite the heavy nerf. Shell Shock Mortar was a bit lackluster upon release, but then the damage buff just happened, and it's actually pretty good, especially in striker decks. It's the only monkey that has a stun mechanic, which plays very well into tempo/beatdown decks, and is definitely one of the better monkeys overall. Robo Monkey also received balance changes in the most recent update, nerfing his ammo, while compensating him with a damage buff, which has also made him balanced in my opinion. It used to be S tier thanks to its ability to fully shut down aggressive pushes with 3 pieces of ammo, and the double attack feature will forever carry this monkey, so he's still a decent option as a temporary defender. And lastly on the B tier we have the Marketplace. The marketplace is actually pretty good, especially to power up long range ranks for the late game, and can easily snowball into the mid game with the right setup. However, the reason it's not any higher is because of the aggressive meta, which makes it a very risky option to set down. So now here's your 8 tier monkeys. These are very consistent yet strong options, and have a lot of potential to shift the tide to your favor, though they are not just as overwhelming as the S tier options. First being the Dark Champion. Dark Champion could probably belong in the high B tier, but the most recent buff to its damage has made it a lot viable, especially if you really need that 4th super monkey in a control deck with the likes of a bin. It's not the most cost efficient option out there, but definitely a solid late game ultra rare monkey to have, and can increase the power of your defenders like Tax Sprayer, which is a reason why it's usable in control decks specifically. Speaking of the Tax Sprayer, it's one of the best defenders in the game thanks to how cheap and cost efficient it offers. It received a rework/nerf in the most recent update, but I don't think that's going to knock it down from irrelevancy, as it can keep you safe from a potential pink balloon rush or the storm in general, so it'll always be a viable option at least. Monkey Investigator is a fantastic option for tempo and combo decks in particular, as it can draw the balloon you really want. It also enables Eternal decks to be viable, as it can draw it from the bottom of the depths all the way to you with just one swipe, and it offers reasonable damage for its cost, so it's very good, and should be auto included in certain archetypes. Wizard is by far the best scaler currently, as it can provide consistent value throughout control, or mid-range decks in specific. However, it could belong in the B tier, mainly because of R2S and the hyper-aggressive meta. Once R2S and Blooming Balloon receives big nerfs, Wizard will be very usable in a lot of different archetypes, so low A tier is fair. Quincy Action Figure is essential for any combo deck, allowing you to afford more pieces of the jigsaw to OTK your opponent with the likes of quick readies, double troubles and fortifications, mostly on double yellow, double ceramic and triple threat balloons to counter control decks. So for how cheap you can place it'll forever be in the A tier, until it receives a price hike someday. Jungle's Syndrome, I meant Jungle's Bounty, is an excellent control card to stabilize incoming aggression and tempo thanks to its constant healing, and it's got better with the introduction of long range rank that lets you burn your gold for damage, letting the Jungle's Bounty Druid heal more throughout the session. We are seeing more counters to Jungle's Bounty Druid, specifically aggro decks that can one-hit kill the opponent without defenders, and it's mostly outclassed by clever yellow balloons and Monkey Priestess, which are generally more efficient in terms of healing, and the former can apply pressure for only 3 gold, which is a balloon. So I would rank all balloon cards in the next tier list. Monkey Priestess is definitively better than the Jungle's Bounty Druid, mainly because she can be replaced to heal your hero by 200 health. What? That's insane value, especially for anti-aggro decks. So she's best used with Barrel of Monkeys to fill your board, so you can instantly replace her for the healing, which lets you stabilize aggro for a relatively low cost. So she's one of the better monkeys in the game and definitely worthwhile getting. Banana Farm is one of the best money makers when it comes down to tempo/beatdown decks, letting you snowball and afford more pressure for the opponent to really deal with. It's not needed elsewhere, as you can still run other archetypes without money generation. So for that reason, Farm will forever be good for supplementing tempo decks. Super Monkey works fabulously on any control based deck, having sufficient burst damage to take out a medium sized push without a problem. You do see Super Monkey being used a lot in a bin control and other control/mid-range decks, as it just helps deal with any aggro/tempo push your opponent is planning to do. If you really need that big DPS, Super Monkey is that guy to hire. Dart Monkey Twins is one of the most cost efficient monkeys in the game when taking the damage/cost ratio and consider it. Link Twins both deal 25 damage each, which is 50 DPT for the price of 2 golden monkey spaces, which the spaces doesn't really matter much in the short run. if you're facing off against any aggro deck. If it weren't for Barrel of Monkeys, Dart Monkey Twins would definitely be in the S tier 100%. Now we got the old man. I meant Mind Supervisor. Mind Supervisor is one of the best monkeys inside of Adora and Mountain of Index, mainly because they really need that Bloontonium to power up their abilities necessary to defend rushes without much of a hassle. Mostly in Adora's case. If you have 3 supervisors on your side, you can make 9 Bloontonium per turn, which provides insane utility for the price of 4 gold. Reasoning as to why Adora is such a good noob stomper in the current meta is because of the old man. Sorry, I meant Mind Supervisor. And lastly, on the A tier I went with the Bernie Stuff Mortar. Bernie Stuff is one of the best answers to early tempo and blimp pushes thanks to its ability to set a balloon light for the remainder of its duration, dealing 30 damage per tick, and it deals more against balloons with a relatively long delay such as Moabs and BFBs. Why is this not S tier, you do ask me? That's because of the hyper aggressive meta and competent aggro players know how to make the Bernie Stuff with its powerful shot every turn, rendering it useless in certain occasions, but it's still a really good counter to tempo / beatdown decks for a relatively inexpensive cost, as the randomness does not necessarily matter if there's only one strong balloon on the opponent's side. Plus it gives even more value for Gwendolyn's Flame Strike, which makes it very viable for any Gwendolyn deck. Now moving on to your S tier monkeys. These are the best of the best, and can be used in pretty much any archetype, and have great success within the right moments. They are the most superior to all the other monkeys ranked below in this list. First being the Moab Mauler. Moab Mauler is insanely strong for the price. It deals so much damage against large balloons, and can also spread its attacks between a non-large balloon or a large balloon, especially to counter the likes of lead coating balloons and other armored balloons in general. It's so versatile that it makes it an auto-include in any good control deck, especially to tackle weaknesses involving armored balloons such as Adora's Orbs of Light. Frag Bomb Shooter is insanely powerful for the price, and can engage in anti-aggro or anti-tempo. It's so incredibly strong. If given damage buffs like ZJ's Radical Enhancements or Gwendolyn's Eat It Up, it's a must-have on many occasions, and can obliterate an entire push if used properly. So very strong. Triple Shot is another splash monkey that's insanely powerful given how cheap it is to place. Ever since the splash damage rework, Triple Shot is just insane. To be completely honest, it's so broken, especially when given sufficient damage buffs. And try this to make it go Keizo mode. And that's the main reason as to why Triple Shot is such a powerful anti-aggro tool that can also be useful in the later game. Normally early monkeys wouldn't have much of an impact in the mid/late game, but Triple Shot is definitely one of them thanks to the rework in 4.0. Blade Maelstrom is one of the best towers in the game thanks to its passive ability being ever so good. Remember that Blade Maelstrom used to be mediocre before its passive got buffed in 2.2. Well, it's basically just a Spike Storm on steroids that can also defend incoming balloon attacks, making this one of the best ultra rare monkeys to include in any control / mid-range deck, thanks to how affordable it is for the mid-game portion. Definitely would recommend unlocking this. Another S tier ultra rare monkey we have is the Moab Dominator. That's right, this monkey is a true powerhouse in the mid/late game, as well as being useful into aggro. If you do manage to hold on until you can afford it, it can stop a Wonderlair large balloon from being a death threat thanks to its on-playability, which is basically just 2 slowing balloons in monkey form. So very insane, and should definitely try and unlock the Moab Dominator, because it's just that. But Barrel of Monkeys is an overpowered early game tool that lets you have 4 dart monkeys in one card, literally. It used to be 5 dart monkeys, but even then it's so versatile that it can be used in any deck, mainly to weaken early aggression, until you have enough resources to pick up the rest of the small bloons with your strong anti-aggro tools like Super Monkey and SMS. So for that reason Barrel of Monkeys is by far the best early game card in the game, and it works best with Adora as she can sacrifice a bunch of dart monkeys to feed her orbs of light more power. Very overpowered and can be auto included in any archetype. And lastly in the S tier I went with the Prince of Darkness. The Prince of Darkness is a menace of society. It literally turns any tempo / beatdown push into a walking nightmare. Being able to buff every blimp on your side is just absolutely criminal. It doesn't do the best into aggro, mainly because it's so expensive and can be ran down. But in the right matchup you can pretty much mark a death sentence on any deck that lacks removal on the Prince of Darkness, so it's pretty OP and worthwhile getting if you're a tempo main. Finally, we have the S+ tier, which houses some of the most broken monkeys in the game currently. There's only 2 I've considered to be so incredibly busted, and second place belongs to the Moab construction facility. Why is this so broken, do you ask me? That's mainly because it was abused so much in ZJ combo decks or any other combo deck that wants to get lethality with a Oh My God or a Lead Zeppelin. And that's because you can run up to 3 copies of the Moab construction facility, since it's a rare tower, meaning it can be obtained from rare power. A tower that can quick ready Moab class balloons is insane. And what's even more broken is when paired with ZJ's Radical Blue. It literally flies towards your opponent and instantly lethals. No matter how many defenders they got, a Double Trouble can instantly activate its effect again to then be lethal. Even if you have hero protection active you're not surviving a highly scaled Radical Bloom with 1 quick ready and Double Trouble, if they have at least 2 of those factories set up. So it's so incredibly busted, and you shall abuse this until it gets heavily nerfed. And lastly we have the winner of this tier list. It is the Bloon Master Alchemist. Bloon Master Alchemist received a nerf to its main attack, but I don't think that resolves the problem with it really. Its on-play effect is so busted, it can insta-kill anything ranging from yellow balloons all the way to the almighty Lead Zeppelin. And what makes it even broken is the synergy with R2S. Use R2S on your Bloon Master Alchemist so that you can play its broken ability again, which is especially useful for hard countering strategies that involves the Eternal Bloom. So definitely by far the best monkey in the game, and should be abused until its ability gets heavily nerfed. So, there we have it guys. That's the full tier list of all 64 monkeys during the ranked season 6 in Bloons Card Storm. This will give you plenty of details and guidance on what monkeys you shall use in the current meta game of Card Storm, so that should be it pretty much. Plus there'll be more future tier lists on Bloons and powers to help you guys know the current meta. If you like this video consider subscribing, liking and turn on notifications bell to support me, and there's never a dull moment to comment your thoughts down in our comments section. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to put in my creator code REALOTHER user in your BTD6, Battles 2 or BCS shop to greatly appreciate for every in-game purchase you make. And I'll see you vivacious guys in the next video. Adios.